Another piece that I did, which didn't quite work out, was this one here, where I didn't apply enough ink. But as you can see some of the lovely lines that are happening in here, or even up the top. If I show you just over here, interesting effects that can happen. So you can get yourself a little frame. I'll just show you what you can do with one of these. I've just cut up a little black frame and move it around and think, okay, can I use that? Probably can. I sometimes make little cards for Christmas or birthdays out of this. It's quite abstract. I use coloured pencil and I work back into the effects, and the effects in there are quite interesting. Or you might decide to shift it round like so, and have a look at sort of this area in here, quite a narrow area. Sometimes I take photographs of these areas and print off what I photograph, and just to see what I'm getting. And you can take that section and really work back into it and see what I can see all sorts of unusual little flowers and things that you can work back into, or you can just keep it quite abstract. So again, here that'd make a great bookmark if you wanted to, and then work back into it. So just by certain sections, you can see some beautiful aspects of mark making happening within the actual artwork. I'm going to look at working back into the areas after using the cling wrap. We can see that we have achieved some beautiful linear work from the creases created from the cling wrap. The next stage is, if you don't want to work with a landscape, you can look at doing something quite abstract. And I'm going to use my frame just to see, move it around and see what areas I like. And I quite like that area there. It's quite busy in here and less busy on the top right hand corner. So I might decide just to using a pencil, a light 2B, just trace that area out so that you know where to work with. Okay. Alright, so you have just a rough indication that you're going to be working back in with pencil over here. Then you might decide to move your page around and think of other areas that could be quite interesting, and I've spotted a tiny little area down here which could make an interesting effect. So bring it in and again frame it up. So what you're looking at using is this viewfinder to create interesting spots. And you might decide, okay, I like this area here. It's just this area. Okay, so you've created 3 different areas. Could essentially be part of your journey and visual journal that you can add drawings, special effects. You may find that you may add some of these to other things. You could possibly take a photo of this and have it printed very big. I'm talking A1 or bigger once you've worked back into it. So you can do lots of really different things from little things. Now I'm going to use some Posca pencils and just using the different hues of oranges and reds and yellows, just to show you what the pencil does. So you might start working with a smaller area in here. Keep your colours quite limited. You might decide, okay, I'm going to just colour back into that area softly. Okay. And you might add another line in here that you quite like. Follow the lines that were created by the cling wrap. Doesn't have to be continuous lines, they can be broken lines. Quite interesting. You might want to even change and go to an orange. Start introducing a slightly different new view. And there's a slight pink line there. You don't have to press too hard. Like so. And you start seeing different shapes and different interesting patterns happening. Okay, might try a little bit of pink in the softer areas, and then just in a circular motion, so you can intensify it in the corner and then blend it out really softly. So just using different pencil pressure to create and intensify that particular area, and that's looking quite interesting at the moment. Okay, I can see just a drop of yellow in there. I might add some cool yellow. So there's a warm yellow and a cool yellow. I'll try the cool yellow. So it's just about just experimenting and really playing with colour and having a lot of fun. And sometimes you do lots of these and, you know, they don't always work out, and other times they look fantastic in special effects. You can print them up on big posters and just keep working back in them. You can just use all sorts of different materials if you wanted to. You can go to a print shop, print it all up, have it really big, stretch it on a board, and then start putting paint and other textures and just keep building surface upon surface upon surface. So I'm just applying it in here, and it's creating it because it's going over the top of that pink. It's giving me a little bit of orange, which is an interesting hue of colour. Okay. Alright, so go back to that red, and I might want to balance it out a little bit. So if I've got red in here, I might decide to put a little bit more down in here. I often colour using just a circular motion to create a blend and interesting. And if I want it to be darker and more intense in colour, just press a little bit harder. You can also use blending sticks, which are really great. You can get rubber ones or you can get cardboard ones, and they help you blend the colour better. This is done on watercolour paper, so what's happening is that you actually can see the lovely texture of the watercolour paper, but if you don't want it, you could try and do it on actual pencil paper, which is designed to take pencil, and you have different densities. I think you can get medium, soft and hard depending on how you're using your pencil. Okay. I might decide I want to intensify that area a little bit more. Don't be too precious with it. Okay, and I might decide to add some of the orange and work back into it this way. So if you've got red down here, come back into here and apply the orange over the top, and then blend it back out slowly. Okay. And that's what you call grading colour, going from like a darker colour to a lighter colour. I might introduce now the warm yellow. So I start over here, again work backwards and then forward to create that sort of grading of colour. You should be able to squint your eyes and then look at the colour slowly going from a red to an orange to a pumpkin and then to a warm yellow and eventually a cool yellow. You can keep going until you get it to almost a white. And then maybe a bit of the cool yellow back into it. just in a circular motion. Back in, so it's blending and gradually coming out to here. And I can see over here I probably need to go back and use that red. So just gently go over the top of the orange and gradually grade it in, blend it in. You might want to use more of a cool red right in the corner here. It's got a bit more crimson in it. Okay, so as you can see, there's some really interesting effects happening just in that area there. And you might decide you might want to apply more pink to this area just to balance it out, or sometimes you might just want to leave it because it has some interesting pastel effects. Just blend it out. And because I have used a little bit of cool yellow in here, I might try and just blend some cool yellow in here as well. So just gently and back in over the pink. It will create a bit of an apricot-y orangey colour. So I'm not pressing hard on the pencil, it's very, very subtle pressure. As I said before, if you want intensity in the corner, you need to press harder. Maybe in there. You might even want to add, there's a little bit of a mauve here. I'm just going to see what happens if you add a little bit of colour. I'm not pressing very hard, it's just, yeah, it's creating a little bit of an interesting contrast, which is great with yellow being mauve, purple and yellow. Complementary colours. You might just do a little bit in here too because the pink's down here, adding different effects. Okay, and you can continue in that area or decide you might want to leave it for a little while and see how you go. I do have a blending stick, which is this one here. Just make sure it's not too, I've used it for pencil. Okay, and it's got like a rubber into it. I don't have any left, but I prefer the cardboard ones. So this you can actually blend the colour if you want to. Blend it in, blend it in. So. Okay, so I've just worked that area in. I'm just going to try some water on it just to see if it does spread a little bit. A little bit, not as much. Aquarels do probably a little bit better job than these ones. You can spread it just a touch to create interesting effects. Blends it in a little bit better to the paper, but also intensifies the colour a little bit more. It's quite interesting. Yeah, it's pushing the pigment out, as you can see. So we're having a really lovely blended effect in there. Okay. And you might decide to work back into that area. I quite like to add a little bit of pink in here. I did outline it with the red. Okay, and because there's a little bit of blue that was accidentally on the page when I did this effect, I'm just going to use a little bit of mauve and intensify that and see what happens. Okay, it does create a little bit of a green. It takes it away a little bit. You can erase it if you want to, but I'm just going to keep it in. I don't mind it. Blend it in. And maybe even see if it'll intensify in the colour. Push the pigment around a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go back and maybe have a look at the colours that I have. So I've got a fair bit of pink, a fair bit of lemon. Probably need to have a little bit more of this red elsewhere just to balance it up a little bit. So I might decide to do the top corner in that lovely red. And just blend some orange back into it. Okay. So what I'm finding is a little bit of a divide in the composition. There's a bit sort of this red and orange and yellow quite intense, and then everything's quite pastel. So just to balance it, I may need to go back into some of the areas and add a little bit of orange and to unify the piece. So once you start adding these colours, you start unifying it right across. I still want to keep that area pastel, but I may put a little bit of orange in there just to unify it. So when you look at it from a distance, it's you know, sort of looking at it right across from here, and it balances the piece and brings it all together, which is really important in composition. Okay, so just put very light lines of red. So I'm using the red as, you know, one of the main colours to outline some of the shapes that were created by the cling wrap. I'm not sure about this piece down here, section, that shape looks a little bit odd. Go back and use some mauve, only so that it balances maybe with this bit here, and perhaps even in here. I often use colours where I can in a triangle of three. I always say if you're going to introduce a new colour, always introduce it in 3 different spots within the composition. It just sort of balances and creates good unification. Okay. Alright, so I've done a little bit there and I can continue working on that. Tried to blend it a bit more. Sometimes things are a little bit, you think, oh, I went a little bit too dark in that area. I'm going to take my window and place it back on there, viewfinder. Okay, just to see what it looks like now. I might use white, a bit dirty, but anyway, I'll give the idea it might be better to use a white rather than a black, just to show you. Okay. It actually doesn't look quite bad as a composition, this little area in here. So I'll lift it up a little bit so bring it closer. I think it's quite interesting to see that area on its own. And so you could have that printed up quite big and then work back into it again with all sorts of different things. I mean, you could even create a cross stitch from it. You can create all sorts of things and take it to the next level. So just looking at shapes, creating shapes from just things that you have around the house, which is really interesting. I'm going to try doing it with black. I love black, but sometimes I think black can take away from the work. You know, you sort of tend to see the frame first before you see the artwork. So you've got to be very careful when framing things up in black. Okay, so that can be quite an interesting small little piece that you can actually work on.